into some of the more detailed questions I've got for you because you are a fantastic DM and you
Thank
specialize
you.
in something that I am fascinated by because you make amazing puzzles and
Thank you.
props. Now, you spoke to this a little bit in terms of the why, you just like it, but
Yeah,
did you
yeah.
always know this was gonna be your thing, or was there a moment of like, "Oh, this part will
I
be
th
fun"?
I think I always knew. Um, so I've said this in almost every D&D interview I've ever given. I'm gonna say it again. Go to Her Interactive and buy the Nancy Drew video computer games. They're incredible. The stories are so rich. You learn like that's another thing. I'm a smarty pants, so I like learning while I play or while I do things. So you learn things, and they're filled with these
Very much.
incredible Are we cut from the same
You're
cloth? Is
speaking my
that
language, yes.
There we go, good. Go
This is
play
a
Nancy
comfortable
Drew games.
space for wanting to learn things.
So I to you specifically, I recommend go play the Nancy Drew games. Um, they're really wonderfully done, and they put a lot of, effort into them. I like the 3 I recommend would be, Ghost of Thornton Hall, um, ooh, Shadow at Water's Edge. 3rd good one. Maybe what's the one in Greece? Um, anyways, they're all it might be Shattered Medallion, or that might be New Zealand, I don't know. Anyways, they're all wonderful. The most recent one is a new kinda company, so I don't not the most recent one, but any of the sort of like, those ones are all fantastic. And again, their puzzles are incredible, and the great thing about puzzles is that, like D&D, there are only a few basic mechanics, right? Let's say there's a dozen basic puzzle mechanics, and then you can dress those up however you want. So and you can layer them, right? So you could have, a cryptex puzzle, but then you're gonna put another layer on top of it where it's not numbers, it's now a cipher alphabet, and they're letters. And then you're gonna go even further, and you're gonna say that you're gonna use, Morse code for those letters, which you then translate into numbers, which then you have to find the right combination based on a riddle, you know? And so in a way, I don't have to come up with puzzles. I just steal a puzzle from Nancy Drew and and redress it, right? Because there's no copyright on, a cipher. Um, but the way that they dress it is what makes it fit for their world. So I dress it for what fits for my world. Um, and that's really, I think, the big key to puzzles, to not being intimidated by making puzzles. It's okay to do research. It's okay to, again, look up ciphers. There are these incredible books you can find all about different ciphers and things like that. And I also really like, because I'm enjoy learning, I always insert into my games an opportunity for them to find a book on ciphers, or to find a letter that teaches you how to do Morse code, so that when you find the puzzle, you're like, "Oh my god, it's Morse code. We can translate this?" Um, so I don't wanna just say, "Okay, make an intelligence check. Alright, you can read Morse code." I wanna give you all of the tools that you as a player need to translate Morse code. And you don't even have to be good at puzzles, because I'm gonna tell you how to do it. You're just gonna have the fun of figuring it out. Um, and that to me is, I think, also a really important thing, is you don't ever want puzzles are not about making your players feel stupid. It should be the
Mm,
opposite. It should be
mhm.
giving players an opportunity to feel really smart. Um, so you don't want them
I
to
love it.
be so opaque that there's no way to get it. I always have like layers upon layers upon layers of hints and clues, and sometimes they don't find them all. Or I often will offer like investigation checks or intelligence checks for a hint. And depending on
Mhm.
how high you always get a hint, but the higher the hint, the better the hint, the higher the roll, the better the hint, kind of thing. Because I want people to feel like they figured it out. If they got a little bit of help, there's no shame in that.
I love this. My next question was gonna be how do you decide how hard a puzzle is? Figure that out. And
Right.
it sounds like part of the
Right.
answer is make sure that you've layered some hints in there so that
Yes.
wherever it lands, you've got some backup plans. But
Yes, I layer that in. Generally, I try to keep puzzles relatively straightforward, unless I know I'm playing with a group that loves them. If I know I'm playing with a group that loves them, I'll layer a couple of different, I'll layer a cipher on top of a mechanical, on top of a, something like that. Um, but generally, it's a 1 or 2-step process. Or I might have it be that, like, you get the code by solving a riddle, but the riddle is, has gone through an alphabet cipher or something like that. And then I'll teach you how to do an alphabet cipher. So you know the steps. It's just you get to sit down with a piece of paper and be like, okay, and this goes here and this goes, oh my God, that's a word. That's what I want to see. I want to see people go,
Aw. What makes for a good puzzle?
good
What does that
puzzle.
mean?
Uh, um, this is a Montessori principle. I told you I was a nerdy smarty pants. Um, Inherent reward. So the idea of like Montessori is the idea of like a circular puzzle piece that slides right in, and the reward is it fits, right? So you don't need someone to go, "Yay, you did it." You're like, "Ooh, that was very pleasurable that that slid in and fit in that space." And so for puzzles, I think an inherent reward is the best kind of puzzle to make. So first of all, your puzzle should be hiding something really cool, right? Like, or if it
Bring through
hides
Ovaltine.
nothing, because if I've done it where it hides nothing except a note from someone who says, "Haha, I got here first." Like, it should be something really like, "Ha!" or "Ha!" it should be the best or the worst. It shouldn't just be the door to get in, to the house, it should really be worth it to go through it. And then specifically with physical puzzles, you do want something where, like, if it actually, like, fits together or it actually turns and then comes apart, that's all very exciting. And even if you're doing that imaginatively, describe those steps. If I had someone solving a cipher and I didn't actually have, not a cipher, a cryptex, and I didn't actually have a physical cryptex for them to use, or it was over line, I would still say, you spin each dial, finding the correct symbol. As you begin to pull it apart, you feel the pressure release as you open it and a small vial falls out. Like, you want to really sell the inherent reward of opening something.
The sensory elements of it. That you
Yeah,
see, I'm
yeah.
already invested. I'm not even in this platinum. I'm like,
I know.
I did do that.
I
Uh,
opened the cryptex. You said so.
but you do take it to another level because you will sometimes show up at a game with an actual thing for someone to
Yes.
decipher, which is
Yes.
incredible. What are your
Thank
tips for
you.
folks who would like to try bringing some props to the table?
Yeah, again, it should be in your interest wheelhouse already. This should be fun, not a chore. So don't do this if this is not your jam. But I already owned an X-Acto knife. And I already had foam boards, so I was very ready for it. Um, yeah, I mean, I think it can be a really exciting thing, and I think players always respond when they're like, "You made this for us," like there's a feeling of that. And I particularly like when things look a little homemade, look a little bit like, you know, you did them yourself. Um, so actually I brought some examples to show you all. So this is my cryptex that I created. This I found on like eHow or something like that, how to make a cryptex with cardstock. So it's cardstock and glue. That's all. And I did all these symbols and numbers and things, and each of these spin. And when you get them in line, it comes apart. Now, do I remember what the code is for this? Is one of the questions. I might not. I can cheat though. Let's see.
Can
How
the
can I
puzzle maker
cheat?
make a puzzle so good even the puzzle maker can't solve it? We're about to find out
Well,
live on
I know
stream.
I need my my notes, but here's how to break your, to cheat your way through a cryptex that was homemade. I'll figure it out later, but yeah, so I brought that. So yeah, I mean this is really fun, and then when players finally slide it open, and I can hide something small in here like a little vial or a little rolled up note or something like that. Um so yeah, notes too, you can do so much now, especially if it's not a streamed for or paid for game. steal stuff from the internet, like who cares because you're not making any money off of it. It's just to have fun at home. So, a lot of things are just like if you just throw like a fancy border on a piece of parchment paper and type it too. Like I don't have great handwriting, but like there are calligraphy fonts on basic word processors and you can really make something that looks kind of great. And um I've done the whole thing where I've burnt the edges of paper and I've soaked it in tea and I've crumpled it up and you can make stuff look really, you know, I've done I did research on forging techniques, not because I wanted to forge anything, but forging techniques require sometimes aging things or making things look that
You
way.
must be on some
And so
very fun watch lists at
I
this
I'm
point.
sure that I
Uh,
am. I'm sure that I am. Um, and
Counterfeiting
then so I have another
currency.
one. I know. This is a less, fancy one I did. I'm gonna maybe try to redo this one with cardstock because I think it would be better, but these are, they're plates that have different holes in them, and they come apart, and they only go back together in a certain order, and you can see, like, some of them have pegs on them. Oh, they come all the way down.
I love this.
And so I made this in my father's in the basement of our house in Brooklyn. Um, this is a hard puzzle. I I gave this to my team who I knew like thrived on puzzles. And I basically they had to find each piece of them in a different room of this mansion that they were exploring. So that took us forever just to get all the pieces. And then once they did, I put them all on the table and I was like, I'm going to go get a drink. I'll see you in like 30 minutes. Let me know how far you got. But it was amazing to be like sitting there at the table and just watching them be like, oh, this one. Oh, no, no. Wait, it should be this one. And they're all like working together to try and build this thing up. And again, I would only do that with a team that I knew loved that and would really thrive on it because for other people you get half the people sitting back and they're like this isn't for me and see again you want to read your table really well and maybe for some a team like that I do just four like maybe you make just four pieces because that's a lot easier to throw together. um but yeah, I get a lot of satisfaction watching people use their brains. I think it's fascinating to watch people think, and puzzles can do that. D&D in general can do that. Um, but it's exciting to watch people think, and it's exciting to watch people succeed at something hard like that and then be so proud of themselves. Um, I get a real kick out of that. So, so that's why
That's an
I will
amazing.
happily spend hours with an X-Acto knife and cardstock because it excites me.
And that's beautiful. I love that you mentioned learning reading the table because
Yeah,
some of us have been in situations where like, 3 players at the table are really into the puzzle and want to sit
yeah,
here till we get it and 2 players really want to move on and do something
yeah,
else. How do you approach when you're in a situation like that and you've already set it out in front of them and it's just sort of now arising? Have you had
right.
any successful experiences in
I have.
carrying that forward?
Yes, I have. So if it looks like one or two people are going to dominate the puzzle and then the others are not as interested, um, you know, I, I will oftentimes not side quest, that's too big of a word. But if I see that happening, I might sit there and go, three of you hear a creak from outside the door. So, while they're working on the puzzle, they have a little something to go and investigate. Um, you know, I I'm deciding more and more that old adage of like don't split the party. I kind of hate it because
Ah!
it's a little meta gamey, right? It's a little like we're sticking together so that we do not die. When like if two people were working on a puzzle and the rest of you heard a noise, like the three of you might go, you might do it. So I might start encouraging my players. I might again, it's about like safety, right? So I might say, look, I am never going to TPK you for making a great creative decision, right? Like you are always safe. So feel free if you feel like this is a moment in which splitting the party will allow you to get two things done at once. Like don't feel beholden to that adage. Because maybe we have a really fantastic, you know, story going on here, which we go like, pause, story over here. Okay, pause, back to you, Like some of my favorite moments have been things like that, where, like, someone goes on their own, like, scouting quest through I mean, it's just the 2 of us, and everyone else at the table's like, "Oh, I hope they don't die," you know? And it's lovely, that tension. But, we had one of those on Relics and Rarities in the 4th episode. I know Janina is a puzzle fiend, so I specifically invited her to come do that 4th episode because it was my most puzzly of the night. And there were definitely a number of times, if you watch that episode, where she's like, "Got it. That's it," kind of thing. And that was fine because that was built for her. And the other players explored or did investigation checks or kind of kept the story going while she took that time. And the very last encounter of that adventure, again, was tailor made for that. It was a puzzle while there was an ongoing battle so that there's a time limit, right? You have to solve it fast. And it was an easy puzzle to the event that you knew exactly what you had to do. You just had to do it pretty quickly. And of course, I physically had them coloring things in. And the most amazing thing happened, which is that Mume, who's a rogue melee fighter, our fighter, ended up doing the puzzle while the bard and the druid and the barbarian fought off the zombies. And I mean, the idea of this druid like just being like vines, 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 while their 2 tanks are over here like, "Oh," trying to figure the puzzle was again why I'm just like, you have to play this more from your brain rather than always your character sheet. Your character sheet would say that was a terrible idea. But the end of that adventure is so compelling because they did the opposite. And we had little Rick Emma spoil. If you haven't watched it, please go watch Relics and Rarities, everybody. I'm so effing proud of it. But we have
It's
little
wonderful.
Ricky. Thank you. We have little Ricky, like, taking hits for the barbarian to, like, save them, and it's very exciting, and I'm so glad that he got that moment that he might not have had if our fighter and our rogue were more like, "No, we should be the ones," you know? So again,
Mhm.
following your gut and your instinct and not letting that kind of game mentality totally take over, what the story is. I don't know if I
I
answered your question.
love
I went totally off on a
No,
tangent, but I love it.
and it's a perfect example of sort of you're thinking in terms of strategy and precision to create these puzzles, but then letting the actual play experience lead
Yeah.
in play, and that it doesn't have to all be about optimizing. Although, like, what I
Yeah.
love is that sometimes folks who really enjoy optimizing will often do
Mhm.
that because they want to have interesting ways of dealing with problems. And I feel like you
Sure.
build that into your combats by making them tricky in a lot of other ways. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
I feel
I want there to be multiple solutions, multiple problems, um, and I also want, like I don't like, a lot of times when I play games, people are always like, "Is this character okay? Will this fit in your world?" And I'm kind of like, "Yeah, build whatever you want." Like, I don't build worlds that are, like, specific, "You have to be this," or da necessarily, I kinda and then I'm kind of like, "You're in charge. I don't wanna memorize your spells. Like, you tell me how your spell works," you know? And if you get it wrong, that's okay. I get stuff wrong all the time. Like, so I really try to let gameplay be in their hands. I'm just there to say, "Oh, okay, sure, let's try that." Um, so I don't necessarily go, "This would be a good this would be a good opportunity for Mume, Janina's character, to shine." I go, "This would be a good opportunity for Janina to shine if she wants it."
Mm.
But she also can choose to fight, and that's fine as well. Um, but yeah, again, I end up being more fascinated by players than I do by characters, and that's just a personal thing. That is not a mandate of D&D. That is just a Deborah thinks you are way cooler.
So what is something that you've never gotten to try, that you'd love to take on in
Ooh.
terms of puzzles or prop creation?
Ooh, in terms of puzzles and prop creation. Hmm. I mean, I do like I said, I do love really, like, mechanical, like, actual things people can put their hands on, and I've done some of the smaller scale stuff. I have I have often thought about doing that, like, D&D escape room crossover kinda thing, where, like, again, once we get back to the point where we can actually all hang out together, that, like, I preset the room to have a bunch of puzzles in it that are a little bit hidden from view, and then, like, 15 minutes into the game, I suddenly kind of like lights, reveal that we have actual locks and actual cabinets with things in it, and you have to actually go through the books and do all the things. So, that's sort of a larger scale. I had a big planned out one for Halloween once. I was gonna do like a haunted house escape room D&D thing, but I did not have time to do that. So, I'll probably spend years of my life planning it and making it and finally doing it when I'm like 50 years old or something.
That's a goal worth waiting for, and something I'm pretty sure that it will be possible to hang out in real spaces by that time. So I feel like that
Probably by
timeline is going to
then,
work out
yes.
fine. I do wonder. I this is just random, but I in reading, as a lot of folks did, and you being a theater person, about the passing
Mhm.
of Stephen Sondheim last fall, I had not
Yeah.
realized that in addition to being an incredible musical theater genius and the creator of
Mhm.
incredibly clever lyrics, he also loved adventure games and escape rooms. And
I
I'm now
didn't know
wondering what
that.
the brain through line is that connects
Yeah.
all of the fun that you can have with those sorts of ideas. But I submit,
I
uh,
the question to me? I mean, look, I was a math and science geek. That was my thing growing up. I was very into data and, getting like algebra was fascinating to me because it's this big string of confusing numbers and letters that you slowly come down to like x equals, and then there's this beautiful simplicity about it. So I loved that, and I think musicians often have math type brains, really good musicians and even really good lyricists, because it's some of it is the craft of it requires, I think, that kind of thinking. I don't know if Sondheim was or not, but he's clearly a genius. And I think puzzles and escape rooms and things like that ask that same part of your brain to kind of come alive. And as a theater geek, the combination of those two, either in D&D or escape room type situations or Nancy Drew computer games, is sort of perfect. And I imagine for a composer and lyricist like Sondheim, again, it's that bringing together those disparate parts. That's what feel like disparate parts. The storytelling
mm.
artistic part and the mathy solving puzzles part, really, I think, come together in music, adventure games. There's a few places where that happens.
And I guess rhyme is probably a pretty good example of inherent reward. Nobody
I
needs to
think
be there to
so.
hear it, but you're like, well, that fit.
100%. You are absolutely right. Right on.
It's D&D, D&D Beyond, yeah, D&D, D&D Beyond. You got your stats, you got your soul.